And wicked. Here we are with Kerry Dell. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm super. I've been having a lazy day, a lazy Saturday. It's been really good. I've needed the rest. I've been so hectic lately. So
Yeah. Oh, it's good to have some rest.
yeah, just resting. So yeah, what have you been up to today?
I started the day off with a 4 kilometer walk with my dad, who's 65. So that was pretty cool. And then just made some breakfast, did a bit of reading. It's been a nice day.
Cool. What's is your father like he's a pretty fit guy or?
To be honest, he was never that into fitness. He was always working really, really hard most of his life. And then once he retired, for some reason, the fitness spark just kind of switched on. And now I can't believe it. He's like bloody Wim Hof. The guy goes for swimming in the middle of the beach and he's like backstroking, looking all relaxed. It's crazy.
Does he get into the Wim Hof? Have you showed him what the Wim Hof?
I brought it to his attention. I don't know if he's done much reading up on him, but he reminds me of it in some ways. But yeah, it's really inspiring. He goes for every single morning. He'll do a 4 to 6 kilometer walk without fail.
Beautiful. What discipline.
Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Is that something that you get from him? Has that gone down the line and you've picked up that discipline and that kind of dedication?
Possibly. I mean, I think I've taken a lot from both of my parents. That discipline is definitely something that I think got drilled into my head from a young kid, and it's probably transcended into the training. I'm not sure, but yeah, I look up to that.
Cool. And is that something that you practice in terms of Wim Hof? Is that something that you get into?
The Wim Hof
method, the breathing method, yeah.
I haven't looked into him enough to say that I practice what he teaches directly, but breath technique is definitely important both in and out of the training sphere. So it's I think it is important, but not directly. I can't say it's direct.
Highly recommended. I think Alistair Overeem was doing it for a while, and he was smashing, and then he stopped doing it for a while. And I was listening in on the Wim Hof podcast with Joe Rogan.
Okay.
Yeah, he was talking about training Alistair, and then he stopped doing it. But yeah, it's definitely helpful. It just gives you more calm. Gives you, you can really just do. You feel like you have your capacity, your larger capacities, in terms of whether it's lifting weights or training, and that really instills that calmness under pressure. The same thing that we're doing with qigong really helps with that. So you're reading. You said you were reading a book. Tell us what you're reading at the moment.
The Joy of Compassion. Maybe I shouldn't mention it. I'm like 8 pages in. So far, it is good. It's basically just discussing aligning yourself with compassion and making that your purpose in life. And when you put your ego aside and you focus on the clarity of the mind and leading with compassion, you're able to serve others in a much better way. I can wholeheartedly agree with that concept.
Can relate. Yeah. Let us know how it goes. Have you got any other books that have been life changing for you, or?
The Alchemist back in high school I found was pretty good, to be honest, and I read that a few times again after school had finished, and that's always been a book that's resonated quite well with me. That's the first one that comes to mind.
Cool. And so you've been training now. So you were a kickboxer, did you say? You're doing MMA first, and then
I actually started off with mixed martial arts. So the first gym I ever walked into was MMA, and I remember walking up this like dark staircase, and I didn't know what to expect. I was really young, and I walked up this dark staircase and opened the door to this room of like sweaty men, and I'm just thinking to myself,
rolling around the mat.
Sorry,
rolling around the mat, kicking and punching each other.
Yeah, like damn. Okay, what have I walked into? But the coach was really nice, and it was a really good experience. But yeah, I started off with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
So tell us more about that. So you walk in by yourself, just looking for like you were like, oh, did you see the UFC on TV or something? Like, how did that come about?
I watched the Karate Kid a lot I was younger, and
Yeah.
there was this, you know what, ever since I was a little kid, there was always this thing in me that found the martial arts scene really appealing. There was just something that really, I don't know, I connected to it in a way. So I Google searched local martial arts gyms, and I found this one in Belmore at the time in Sydney. And yeah, I just went the next day. I caught up. I'm like, hey, you know, I don't really have that much experience, but I was wondering if I could drop in and do some classes. And I don't know quite what my intention was. I know that I was sort of, this might sound strange, but I think I was kind of looking for something to make me feel stronger. I was also looking for a challenge, because as long as I remember, I've always liked the idea of pushing myself to both physical and mental limits per se.
Where did that come from? Was that just always a thing, or like is that from the folks, or?
It could have been a plant that was a seed that was planted, you know, when I was really, really young. But I can't pinpoint a moment where I can say, you know, that's where it stemmed from. I'm not too sure, but I've always it's just been engraved in me, where I've loved that feeling of growth, you know, both on a mental and a physical level. Yeah, I ended up going to this gym. I walked up this dark staircase, opened the door to a room full of sweaty guys. The coach was really, really friendly. And I just jumped in and started training. And
what did you say? Did you say, yep, what, like, did you have a gi or anything? Really, what was it? Like, active wear? What was the story?
Sorry?
Did they give you a gi to train in, or was it like, did you?
Not initially. The first thing I did was just a bit of boxing, and then they got me used to the kicks as well, which, man, my coordination back in the day was horrible. I still remember it, like, yeah, so I just did a bit of the stand-up.
Couldn't even throw a punch, couldn't throw a kick.
I think people think that throwing a punch or kicking is really easy, and I think mentally you think, oh yeah, how hard can it be to throw a punch? There is so much technique involved, and it's not just your arm doing the work. And I had this misconception that I just had to throw my arm out and there you go, it's a punch. But was I wrong?
So on that, so tell us what you were doing before, and then like what the concept was, like what you were doing wrong, and how you corrected it, and now tell us the ins and outs of what a correct technique looks like.
So they got me to, I'm right-handed, so I was standing in what's known as orthodox position. So I have my left leg forward and then my right foot back. Each coach or everyone has a different sort of style of doing it, but there are some similarities throughout. So I was taught to, at the time, from memory, I think both of my feet were flat, which I now don't do. And it was just hands up, protecting the face, and then throwing the punch outwards. Now,
just give us 1 second. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, sorry, go again.
That's okay. Do you want to keep going?
Yes, just describing that again. You had the flat foot.
Yeah, so yeah, at the time, so I think both of my feet were flat on the ground, which I don't do anymore. But hands were up, protecting the face. Chin was down. I was taught to envision that there's a golf ball in between your chin and just that top part of your chest. So you've got to keep your chin far down, because getting hit around the jaw and the chin is referred to as the button. So that's pretty much good night. Get your sleeping bag out, have a sleep. Whereas the forehead is the hardest part of the head. So you can cop a couple of hits there and be relatively okay with it, exactly like that. You got a good demonstration happening. And yeah, so
how big were the gloves you were wearing then?
I think they were a 14 or a 16 ounce, so they were fairly bulky at the time. 14 ounce, yeah, they were a 14 ounce glove. And yeah, there was a lot of emphasis on rotation of the hips. So the way I like to put it is, whenever you're throwing a punch, so the jab is your left hand, the cross is your right hand. The power isn't coming from the shoulders or the fists. The power is coming from your core and your feet. And that takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of time to get everything working relatively in sync. So yeah, so I was taught basically chin down, punching straight, bringing the shoulder towards the jaw and the chin, so that at least you're protecting that part of your face, so that you're defending at the same time as attacking. There you go.
What does the chin do when you turn? Like, where's the chin just stay down?
The chin stays You never want to expose your face. You never want to be like, you know, staunching someone and you've got your chin facing up. So you want to keep you want to keep the chin facing down, the hands up, and the inactive hands, or the hand that's not doing the attacking, should always be protecting the face.
And
so
are your hands relaxed? Are they open? Are they tight? Like how do?
When you're in, so if your hands are in the glove, you keep them relatively tight. Sometimes if I'm doing a little bit of pad work and I want to go for speed, I keep my fists open because it just brings about a bit more speed within those punches. But generally during sparring or when you want to give a bit more power, I just keep my fists closed within the glove.
And are you hitting the target, or are you hitting through the target? And is that, what about the snap back and bringing the arm back? Is that important, or? Did you catch that?
Wait, sorry, you just cut out.
So I was saying, are you trying to hit the target that you're hitting, or are you hitting through the target, and also how important is bringing the hands back as well?
I like to envision, so 2 principles. Number 1, you never want to stop once you meet the target. That limits your power as well. You want to make sure firstly that you're really sturdy on your feet, because if you try and punch through but you don't have that stability through your feet, you're going to end up falling forwards. So primarily, first thing, having that stability on your feet, envisioning that you're actually punching through the target but then snapping it back as if you're throwing a ball. Does that kind of make sense? So you don't want to punch and punch through but keep your hand there, because obviously you're quite exposed. So you want to envision punching through, so hitting through that target but then snapping your hand back as if you're throwing a ball.
Cool. And how long did it take you to learn all that? You said it's quite a process.
Like a long time. You know what? I learned a lot from my first coach. That was my foundation. And that was fantastic. That was a great first experience. And then I had trained with a few other coaches after that. Where they tweaked that technique. So I started working my feet a lot differently. I started using my hips a lot differently. And
in what way? What were you doing before, and what did you change exactly?
So my footwork used to be quite rigid. So I'd move quite stiff, if that makes sense. And if you watch a Muay Thai, like a traditional Muay Thai fight, it tends to be a little bit more stiff, whereas through the boxing and the kickboxing, you see a bit more fluidity. So I incorporated a lot more on my toes. I was bouncing on my toes. I began bouncing on my toes a little bit more, and also using the rotation of my hip through my punches, so that I incorporated all of my core into that actual punch. So it grades the power.
And I noticed you're twisting your hand there. What's that all about? So what's the concept there?
So I sort of vary that a little bit. I find that if you twist your thumb down, you still want to be hitting with those front 2 knuckles. You don't want to ever sort of use those 2 because they're softer and a lot weaker than the front 2. But as you twist your thumb down, it naturally draws your shoulder in towards your chin and your jaw. So you've got that defense there, but it also lengthens your reach to an extent. So some people do that, some people don't. I tend to vary it up a little bit, but I find that it does lengthen my reach, and it does incorporate that element of defense by bringing my shoulder into my jaw.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And there, you said how long? You said a bloody long time. What are we talking? 6 weeks, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months?
I wish 6 weeks. If it was 6 weeks, I'd be cheering. That'd be awesome. It took ages. I was really stiff to begin with. So I found it quite difficult to loosen up and to become more fluid with my emotions. I think to get to a point where I felt relatively confident about my technique, maybe about 6 months. And then it had just been a learning, a period of learning, a sequence of learning after that. So 6 months until I felt relatively confident, but then even after leaving that first gym that I had initially started off with, the MMA gym, and meeting a few different coaches and training with them and adapting their sort of technique into my style as well, it took maybe a couple of years until I felt really, really sharp, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did you keep going with that? Like, and that could be for a lot of people disheartening, and they'll be like, I'm not learning, I'm not getting anywhere, or you know what I mean? Like, I still haven't got this thing. Could be frustrating. Or like, what was the mindset to keep coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I think a natural human reaction is to sometimes get a little bit frustrated within yourself when you're not picking something up as quick as you want to. So there was a bit of an element of frustration, but I think if you allowed your mind, and if you lean towards too much towards that side of frustration, it just limits and it stagnates your progress as well. So it just ends up taking a lot longer to actually get the concept and get the technique, because you just end up going in there clouded and frustrated and upset and angry. You're not going to progress when your mind state is like that. So yeah, I was a little bit frustrated at the start, but I just wanted to keep learning, and I knew the only way to get better was to keep practicing, you know. So I just kept practicing.
And what kind of hours are we talking? Did you have a day job, and like were you training full time or?
When I first started off, I was working part time and I was studying full time, but I'd put in at least 2 or 3 hours a night. And now I'll put in at least an hour and a half a day, and I try and do it 7 days a week unless my body needs a bit of recovery. Yeah. So I try and do as much as I can, but back then when I was getting 2-3 hours a night, I mean, that was a combination of the groundwork and the stand up. That was awesome. That was great.
So you've been training BJJ that whole time as well?
No, BJJ I stopped about 2.5, 3 years ago when I decided to lean more towards the stand-up stuff, so the kickboxing, boxing, and the Muay Thai. But up until that point,
why'd you stop for?
I wanted to get into the competitive arena of the stand-up, and for me, that's just where my passion lied, I guess. I love the technical aspect of the groundwork, and submission wrestling I enjoy, and to this day I'll do a few sessions here and there just to learn more and maintain a level of technique, I guess. But my passion is definitely in the stand-up.
Fair enough. What, did you get graded and stuff in the BJJ or?
At the time, no, I didn't at that gym. Yeah, for some reason we didn't get graded, so I just stayed on the first belts. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's completely different to the stand-up, completely different.
A lot more to think about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's just a completely different arena. And a lot of fitness involved as well. A lot of people think, oh, you're on the ground, you're just rolling around, there's no cardio. Bullshit. Yeah, there is cardio.
If you miss one session, you know about it.
I feel it straight away. Yeah.
Cool. And go on.
The thing that I like about or what I learned from the BJJ is instinctively you'll try and muscle your power into it so that you can get that submission, or so that you can remain as the dominant figure within rolling. But it's nothing to do with the muscle. It's nothing to do with overwhelming the other person with power. It's strictly technique.
Yeah. The
smaller guy can win, or the smaller girl can win. It has nothing to do with size. It's all technique.
And that drilled that into you a bit more. Does that cross over to your Muay Thai and to your kickboxing as well?
Yeah, it's a similar. I mean, look, if you have a 90-kilo girl against a 40-kilo, the power is going to be significantly different in the scheme of stand-up fighting. You know, behind those punches and those kicks, there's going to be a fair amount of. I'm generalizing, but you know, generally speaking, there is a fair difference of power. But there's two sides to it. The smaller person generally tends to have a bit more speed. So at the end of the day, when both people are puffed out and tired, and it's the third round, all you have left is your technique. So it is important.
True. And so you've been professionally in professional belts, or you working towards?
Amateur.
Yeah.
Amateur. Yeah. I've stayed in the amateur field. Took a little bit of time off just so that I could start teaching as well, and incorporating that into my work, which I absolutely love.
So but, tell us more about that.
About the teaching, or
yeah.
So for me, I think it's pointless to learn a skill, or it's pointless to learn something unless you're willing to share that with the people around you, with the people that are willing to learn. So for me, the whole journey of martial arts changed me completely. Honestly, changed me completely on a mental level. Physical was the byproduct. Your body changes, you adapt to the technique, you pick up, you learn. But from the mental side of things, completely changed my outlook on so many things.
So tell us how specifically, like what was it like before, and like the body, the mind before, and then during and now?
So I'll say body first, because that's probably the simplest thing to start off with. My cardio was pretty shitty. I thought it was okay until I started doing the stand-up. So physically I got fitter. I got stronger, but that was also an accumulation of weight work as well, which I enjoy. I got fitter, I got stronger, my technique changed. Obviously, I'd like to hope I got better. So, I think I got better as time progressed. So that was the physical side of things. The mental side of things, like I mentioned before, I think when I stepped into that first gym, I was looking for something to make me feel strong. So I guess you could put it as,
so you felt like you were weak, or like you felt, was there specific things
I
that
didn't,
happened that made you feel
I'm,
not strong, or?
I'm not sure if I felt weak. I mean, I'm sure there was an element of me that did if I was searching for something exterior to make me feel strong. So I can't doubt that. But I can't say as a whole I felt weak. But a part of me, I guess, might have. Yeah. So I guess I walked in there searching for this external thing to make me feel strong. And through the sequence and through the process of training, I realized that you keep searching on the outside, you're never going to find it. You know, the strength that I found within the martial arts didn't stem from the martial arts, but it stemmed from myself, and it stemmed from what I had learned through the martial arts itself. That was more of a catalyst to bring about what already resided within me. And I think that was, you know, super important. And really, really eye-opening. Discipline and self-discipline, not just on a physical level in terms of walking into a gym and training for 2 or 3 hours a night, but mental discipline. If you walk into the gym and you do pad work or bag work or sparring, and you walk in with a clouded, cluttered mind, you're not going to perform well. You've got to discipline your mind to find that sort of clarity and that sort of clearness and presence, so that when you're doing those things, the bag work, the pad work, the sparring, you're present, you're there wholly and fully, and you're aware, and you can learn and you can move on, you know, quite quickly. Because some people cop a hit, and for the next 30 seconds or so, they're still thinking about that hit, like, shit, you know, how did that happen? And then so many things happen within those 30 seconds, and they're still in their head.
Getting caught.
All of that. You've got to be present. You've got to be really present. So yeah, as before, the meditation has been super important, and not just the meditation as in sitting down for 20 minutes or half an hour and clearing your mind. That's fantastic, but bringing that same concept into day-to-day life or into your training. So when I'm standing up and I'm sparring someone, my head's not, what did I do this morning? What am I going to do if I get hit? What if I look really shitty? What if my head's not all of that? Sometimes it is. I'm human. I'm not going to deny that. Sometimes it is a little bit of that, but I try my hardest to clear it and remain as present as I can within that situation, so that I can perform as best as I possibly can. And in that regard, that's how I've, you know, there are a few factors of how I've changed from the start until now, and I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and that's been the best part. The best part isn't so much learning how to throw that jab or that cross perfectly, but it's everything else that's come with it. You know, the hours and the discipline in clearing your minds and remaining present and discovering a belief within yourself. Because I think I walked into it and had so much doubt within myself, especially it being a male-dominated arena. I was the only girl in that gym. The first gym I went to was the only female, and it's only been within the last couple of years that more females have been attracted into the sport, which I think is fucking awesome. You know, I think that's incredible.
This is at the beginning, sport, so it's like ever since like Ronda Rousey and things like this, or?
I mean, it's hard to say. There've always been a few select females that have, you know, been in the sport or taken it to that level of wanting to compete or really taking it seriously. But in terms of it gaining popularity, the whole UFC thing could have something to do with it, because it got quite glorified as well, and I think maybe became more appealing to females. Whatever the spark was, I think it's fantastic that we're at a point now that we have more females within the sport. It's definitely still male dominated, whichever gym you go into, unless it's a female only gym. There's still going to be, you know, a fair amount of men more than there are women. But it's great to see that there are more women within the sport. I can understand, like I've spoken to a few women, and I felt that when I walked in, there was that sense of intimidation, because you walk into this field of just men, like sweaty guys hitting each other. It's like, all right, that's a little bit, you know, off-putting. It's a little bit intimidating.
Bit confronting, yeah.
And yeah, for sure, it's definitely confronting. And when you're rolling with or sparring guys, you know, there are some differences there, which I definitely felt as a beginner, you know, and you'd be treated differently by different guys. You know, some guys would go really light on you because, you know, you were a girl, I guess, and some guys would have this sort of complex where they don't want to get shown up by a girl, so they'd go really, really hard, you know. So it's funny. It's actually, to observe it, you learn a lot about people, I think.
What's that like for you? What does that, yeah, what does that feel like? What goes through your mind when you've been, you know, having those guys with the complex approaching it like that, or people treating you like, feeling, do you feel like, oh, you don't need to treat me, go easy on me? Or like, yeah, what's it like for you in that regard?
A few months ago, I did a bit of sparring at this gym, and there was this guy that came up, quite friendly at the beginning. As soon as we began sparring, and when we spar at this gym in particular, you don't want to give more than, say, 50-60% of your power, because it's meant to be a learning experience. You want to give enough so that you can feel it, but you don't want to go so hard so that it turns into a full-on fight or a brawl per se, because it's just controlled sparring, right? And he was fairly bigger than me, so I'd say maybe 6 foot, and I'm about, I don't know, 170 centimeters. So he was a fair bit taller, quite a lot bigger than me. Not that that should say too much, but just to give a visual description.
So you're about 5'7" or so.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
And from the get-go, he was going really, really, really hard. And to be honest with you, like, I think I can cop a punch. I think I've copped enough now to be able to cop it, but it felt like getting hit by a truck. This guy's right hand was physically sending me back. Like, so it was quite heavy. So I brought it to his attention. I'm like, look, do you mind just going, I didn't say it in a bitchy way. I was just like, do you mind, going a little bit lighter, just so that we can move around a little bit better. And he was like, yeah. And he kept going really hard. And there was that split second in my head where it was like I could either see red and just go really, really hard and return, or I could keep calm and just try and move around and defend as best as I possibly could. And I finished that session, and that's not a new thing. And unfortunately, I think that can turn off a lot of women in the sport, because you get that those guys that just want to walk in and prove a point for themselves and like prove something to their ego, where, and they can see that it's affecting the girl, that it's sort of hurting her, but they keep going hard regardless. And I can see why that would be really off-putting, but I always like to think of it as it being more of a reflection of themselves than me. And for me, I walk into it seeing it as a challenge. If it ever gets to a point where someone is too much within my field of space and it's making me feel uncomfortable, you have to say something. Your body is your body. At the end of the day, if someone is breaching what feels right for you, you've got to say something. And at that point, I think it was almost at that limit, but not quite. So I took it more as an opportunity for a bit of, this is going to sound crazy, but a bit of conditioning, I guess.
Work on your defense. Evasiveness.
I think it's actually quite unfortunate, though, that some people do have that mentality. But I'm not going to limit it to guys. Sometimes you get females as well that walk in with that ego.
And how do you deal with that? Is that something that you feel the urge sometimes to have that, need to prove something, or is that like, how do you deal with it within yourself? But also, when you see others with it, do you find a kind of an urge also to educate them, or to bring it to their attention or to their awareness as well?
When I first started, I can definitely say that there was a part of me that wanted to prove something to myself, and that wanted to prove something to my coach and to my team. So I did feel moments where my ego would really come through, and I just want to, I don't know, just put it on someone, or put it on the girl that I was sparring, just to sort of prove something in an egoic way, which I look back now and you just got to laugh, I guess, and you've got to learn from it. Whereas now like I said, I try and just walk in with clarity, and at the end of the day, no one's trying to prove anything. Like, there's no point in trying to prove something to the other person. It's when I see an opponent, so whether it's sparring or in the scheme of a fight, I never see that person as someone exterior. I always see it as a reflection of myself, and I see it as a challenge, so it's never anything personal. And it's nothing personal because that doesn't give my ego an opportunity to come out. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So I try to remain as calm and as present as I possibly can. How do I deal with it? You just take it as it comes. If I get too caught up in that, oh, she's trying to prove something, so I'm going to do it in return, I'm just feeding back what's being given to me. So I try not to think about it too much. I just, the more you think about what that person is doing, the less present and within yourself you actually are. So I try to just disconnect the two. Everyone's in there for different reasons. If she feels the need to prove something to herself at that point in time, who am I to judge? I've been there, you know, but I just try and remain as calm and as present and as humble and as unattached from my ego as I possibly can, which is funny.
So how do you do that when you're caught up? Like, you know, if someone's in that and it sparks feelings, emotions within you, you want to see red, like you mentioned. Is it anything, any kind of, you said you try to remain calm, you try to remain present. Do you have techniques or do you have specific things you can go to in order to bring you back to that?
Breathing definitely helps. So if I do feel that sensation, or if I feel that in the moment, I just want to fight back in that ego sort of way, I just try and take a second, and just breathe and remind myself that that's not why I'm doing this. You know, I'm not doing this to prove anything to anyone. I'm just here because I love the sport and I enjoy the challenge, and that's it. So I try and just quickly remind myself, focus on my breath, and then just restabilize myself within that moment so that I don't get too caught up. You know, it's like a swinging door concept. You get that thought and then it's in one door and straight out the other. You know, I try not to focus on it too much.
Has there been any moments where you have allowed it to overtake you?
Yeah, I mean, there have been moments where it's arisen and I've really, really felt it, but I do make a really conscious effort now to not let it get the better of me. So when I first started out, most definitely I let it, you know, and also I wanted to prove something because I was in this male-dominated arena. I didn't want to be perceived as just, you know, the girl, you know, that was here and there's a girl kickboxing, oh, isn't that, you know? So I had that thing where I wanted to prove it, and I wanted to be the best, but for reasons that were to prove something to the guys there, you know what I mean? And that was the main driving force, whereas now it's not about that. I want to be the best that I can possibly be within this sport, because I just purely love it. I really enjoy it, and I enjoy the learning experience that comes from it.
So is it fun now to pit yourself against an opponent in those amateur bouts? And has that been something that has been a fun experience or a learning experience? What's it been like?
There's nerves. There are definitely nerves. For me, I think one of the most vulnerable positions that you could possibly place yourself in is in the middle of a ring, you know, in front of, you know, however many hundreds or thousands or however many people, when you're up against a person that you know nothing about really, and you don't know what's going to happen within the next 2, 4, or 6 minutes, you know. I think that's quite vulnerable because you're literally just presenting yourself to all those people and saying, you know what, I might get belted tonight, I might not, I don't know what's going to happen. So it's a really vulnerable position to be in. So there's a lot of nerves that come with it as well. I think the more you do something, the more you adapt to it as well, and the more you learn to control those nerves. And it's also important to not get too hyped up with everything, because there's a lot going on, the music, the whole atmosphere of it. It's very full on, you know, so I think it's important to sort of steer away from that overpowering, hyped up atmosphere and just remain as calm as you possibly can. I don't know if I could associate. Yeah, sure. I think it's fun while you're in there momentarily. I'm not going to say it's fun getting hit, because that would probably make you a little bit strange.
I think love it. Some people are like, come on.
Oh, yeah, there are some people that love it. I can't say I'm one of those people. There are moments where it is definitely fun. But I think the whole process leading up to it is what makes it count, because it's not the 2, 4, or 6 or however long you last in that ring. It's not that period of time that really counts. It's all of the training and preparation that leads up to that actual point, you know, to that actual fight. So it's those weeks or months of just hard preparation on your body and on your mind. And I think once it happens and once it's over, actually looking back and reflecting, yeah, that's when you can sort of have a laugh with a few things. And yeah, it has its moments. There are parts that are definitely fun. There are parts that are definitely hard, you know, but as a whole, you know, if you want to learn about yourself, go through the preparation and jump in a ring, because it'll open your eyes to so many things, you know, you didn't even know resided within yourself, I think.
What are some of those things for you that it has shown you?
I'm going to say the key thing, like I briefly mentioned, was probably the self-doubt. And look, I'm not too sure what it was or where that stemmed from, maybe something in early childhood or who knows, but there was a part of myself that really doubted myself and that doubted my ability to succeed and to do really, really well with something. And I didn't recognize that fully until I got into this sport.
Mm.
And I think at the start it was a little bit of denial, because no one wants to believe that they doubt themselves. We all want to believe that, oh yeah, I can do anything, and it's ego, you know, we all want to believe that. But the more the more different experiences I started to face within the training, the more I began to realize that, hold on a minute, there is that element of self-doubt. You know, why is it that I don't believe that I can really do well? And that was the key thing for me. And then working on that. So I can't say exactly where that stemmed from. It could have been multiple experiences. It could have been one experience. I don't know.
But it was a thing. It was a reality for you. It was an actual feeling that you felt and thoughts that.
No, it was definitely a reality. And the martial arts, especially the competitive side of martial arts, and even the sparring, that's what brought it to my attention, because I'd give up. Something would happen and I'd give up. Or before I'd even jump into the sparring bout or the fight, you know, I'd have all these doubts in my head, like, what if I can't do it? What if I don't win? And, you know, all of those things would rush through my head. And it's like, hold on a second, where did all this shit come from, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's working on that. It's restoring strength back within yourself. And maybe that's why I walked into the sport looking for this external thing to bring me strength. And it was a process of learning that, hey, hold on, that's already within me. I just have to recognize and reconnect back with that.
It's amazing that you're somebody who's, you know, you said, I don't necessarily love getting punched in the face, but, you know, and regardless, and also that it does entail a lot of hardship, you know, going through the training, preparation, you know, all the preparation. I assume that you have to diet and you have to really be strict with workouts and your nutrition and wake up early and do stuff that doesn't feel very good at all when you're doing it. You know, weight cutting, things like this. Is this something you have to do in preparation, or? It's
definitely a reality. I'm Greek, so there's a lot of food involved, so that makes it hard. But yeah, the weight cut, the hardest one I ever did was probably about 10 kilos in 8 days, and I would not recommend that to anyone. That was horrible.
That sounds brutal.
It was, but after that, once you do something that you honestly don't think you can, you feel like you can do anything. It really opens your eyes. But yeah, the whole process of it, there is a fair bit of, look, it's hard. It's not easy, but sometimes things can be hard, but it's that mental sort of dwelling on the hardness that it's, you know, we start to overthink, oh, this is so hard, or why is this so hard? And we build it up so much in our head, so it becomes so much worse than what it actually is.
Yeah.
Something can be difficult or challenging, but it's not actually that bad unless we start to overthink it in our heads.
Yeah.
So if you see a situation as it is, okay, I need to wake up at 6 a.m. and go for a 6-kilometer run. Okay, I just need to cut out carbs and lamb. And, you know, if you just see things for what they actually are rather than build them up in your head, yes, it is a challenge, but it's not that bad.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, as I was, just to finish what I was saying, it's amazing that you have all of that as well, but then you turn up anyway. You know, you turn up, you decide, fuck it, I'm going to do it. Where does that come from? Like, how do you go, yep, it does entail all the hardship? Because I imagine a lot of people wouldn't want to do it, or, you know, a lot of people go, I don't want to get punched in the face. I don't want to not eat what I want to eat, or all of these things that they allow themselves to talk themselves out of whatever it is that might be beneficial for them, or they often will know that it's going to be beneficial for them. You know, they've done things in the past similar and go, oh, I've lost weight, I feel sexy, I feel stronger, I feel more disciplined, you know, all of those things, yet they still choose to not turn up and do the thing that is difficult. So what's the mindset there for you that allows you to go, actually, I'm going to do it?
There's a few things. I think number one would definitely be a passion. So this is for me something that I love, and I love for so many different reasons. You know, I love for the like I said, the mental transformation. I love for the physical transformation. I love for every time I step into that gym, I learn something new about myself. You just have to be open to it, and you will realize something about yourself. So I love that I'm constantly learning. But now I think for the last couple of years, the shift or the main drive to keep on going with it and keep on rocking up and keep on copping a few punches to the face has been, I believe, if you're going to practice something, or if you're going to preach something, you've got to practice. So if I'm going to sit in there every single week and and instruct kickboxing or Muay Thai or boxing to someone that I'm training. But if I'm not doing the hard yards behind it, what am I doing? You know what I mean? How can I get someone to fully understand it if I don't fully understand it, if I'm not doing that hard work as well? So the more I learn, the more I can pass on. You know, the more times I get hit, the more times I learn to keep my hands up, the more I can pass that on to the person that I'm training with, you know. So it's there's passion and there's purpose, and the two go hand in hand. And the purpose for me, I believe, from starting martial arts was to learn about myself, but to also be able to pass that on to the people around me in a way that is more than just the physical, you know, more than just standing up and this is how you do your technique and this is how you fight. Because sometimes it gets a little bit too much about that, you know. I want to teach the mental side of it as well, you know, and if I can be a part of that, of someone's journey and have something to do with that, then I'm the richest person in the world. You know what I mean? Like that makes me happy, because for
exactly
me,
what you mean. Yeah.
It's been more about the mental than the physical. And that's why I do what I do. If I can, I've been blessed with the opportunity to be able to pass that on to the people that I train with. And if I can do that, then that's it. That's why I keep going.
Amazing.
The more I learn, the more I pass on.
Awesome. And for you, what is the percentage like in terms of the mental side versus just the physical? Like, all right, I'm just going to come in and do the training. That compared to, you know, the mental game of like, do I have to actually go to training? I have to go. It's cold. It's comfortable at home. It's warm. It's you know, all of that. The mental game in terms of it's going to be hard. What kind of physical wise? How important is the physical aspect of actually just doing the sets, doing the rounds, doing the minutes, doing the bag work, doing the stretching, doing the weights, that compared to the mental side, like how important is the mental versus just the physical?
I mean, I guess it would be safe to say 50-50, but I think at the root of anything we do physically, there is a mental element to it. So it's the mental and then the physical grows from that. If you're not there in your mind, willing to do the bag work and willing to do the rounds and willing to do the running and all that stuff, you're not going to do it, or you're not going to do it as well as you possibly can. So to give you a percentage is probably hard. I think I might say that the mental is a little bit more important. Because you need the mental to get the physical working. That's why I say that. But you can't neglect the physical aspects. You know, you need to be fit, you need to be strong, you need to be technical. You know, if you lack those three things physically, then, you know, you'll be great at meditation, but you won't be so good at fighting.
Then you'll get kicked in the head a lot.
That's it. That's right. So it is. I think you need the physical. You need those physical components of it. If you're not willing to put in the time to get your body conditioned and prepared to the extent that you need it to,
and what's enough? I imagine that people would be coming to you with all types of goals and different. You know, some people might just want to look good in a bikini. Some guys might just want to come and actually, I just really want to get cardio good because, you know, my body's all right, but my lungs are crap. Or, you know, some people might want to come and put on size. Some people might want to come and lose weight. So for you, like when you're working with people, what's the sort of, do you work with them in that capacity and just find out what their goals are? Is it important to find out what they want first and then you can work with them? Or is it just like, all right, if you're going to work with me, this is what you're going to get?
I always have to align myself with what that person is walking in for. So if what I'm trying to teach that person doesn't align with what they want, it's going to clash. It's not going to work. So the first question I always ask is, what are you here for? What do you want to focus on? What are your goals? I need to understand that person. I need to understand what they want to get out of this. Because at the end of the day, I'm just a catalyst of change for what that person wants to attain within that training, the training period of time. So, you know, if I'm working against that and saying, oh, that's what you want, but no, we're going to do this, you know, that's not very fair. In saying that though, I have had, and I do have quite a few, I'm going to say women, because I work mostly with women, that walk in feeling really shitty about themselves, saying, oh, you know, I want to look like this, I want to lose all this weight, and that's fine. We can work on the weight loss, but the one thing I always say is the body is the byproduct. That'll happen, you know, but we need to work on, or you predominantly need to work on fixing the inside. So feeling better about yourself, loving yourself, respecting yourself. Don't train because you hate your body. You've got to love your body first and you're training to take care of it. You will lose the weight in the process. That's fine. It's fine. It's not like a vanity at the end of the day, it's your body. If you want to lose the weight, who am I to say, no, you look fine. Like, I think you're beautiful as it is, but it's your body. You want to lose the weight, we'll lose the weight. But don't be so hard on yourself. You got to recognize that if you're not happy on the inside, if you don't give yourself that love on the inside, losing those 10 kilos isn't going to achieve that either. You know what I mean? You'll temporarily feel great, but it's long-term wise, it's not going to solve any issue. You're just going to move on to something else that you dislike about yourself. So when someone walks in, I obviously focus on their goals and what they want to achieve. But if I can pick up a little bit of negativity or a bit of inner work that needs to be done, then I will try my best to work with that as best as and as compassionately as I possibly can.
So that is on a level maybe not, oh, maybe it is. Like advertised or upfront, like this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a bit more self-awareness, a bit more self-love, a bit more of that mindset stuff that you do bring into all your work anyway.
I think anyone that's trains with me knows that I love to have a chat. The session will be for an hour, and then I'll end up being there for half an hour, later, just having an awesome conversation with the person that I'm with. And I think that's important. I think there's just so much push, especially now within the fitness industry, and for women, I'm gonna say women in particular, and I'm not denying that it's on the side for men as well, but I'm just gonna the case for this point in particular, there is a lot of push towards women to look a particular way, and it's almost as if we're made to hate our body because we're looking at these girls on Instagram, or in the media with these photoshopped bodies that sure look fantastic, but we're made to feel that because we don't look that way, we aren't on that same level. So we end up hating ourselves, and then we train because we hate the way that we look. That to me is a negative cycle. Do you know what I mean? That's like the
wrong reason to get into it.
I would, who am I to say, but I would personally say that that's the wrong reason to get into it, because you're not actually, you drop the kilos, so the physical change is there, but the mental change isn't there, and you end up stuck in the same place or just building on that, and it becomes worse and worse. Predominantly the number one thing should be self-love and self-respect, and you engage in these physical activities because you love yourself and you want to take care of the body that you've been given for this lifetime. So I think that's what the fitness industry lacks. It's too much ego. It's too much, this is the way that you have to look. And in order to be deemed as beautiful or attractive, you have to fit this standardized idea of being. And I completely disagree with that. So I don't know whether I advertise, the mental and the physical. I mean, I just try to be myself. Yeah. At the end, when someone meets me, this is the way that I am, this is the way that I am. And I will do my absolute best in both the physical and mental aspects to help bring about this change that you want. And that's it.
And in terms of shifting that mindset, so if somebody is coming, I just want to lose the weight, I don't like the way I look, or, you feel that what you mentioned of a bit of that negative attitude or that lack of self-love, is there something that helped you or that you've seen help other people to really shift that mindset into one of more like maybe a longer term sustainable, practice of doing the work, or also approaching the work where it's actually going to give the results, which is going to be beneficial longer term? Is there some things that you suggest or that has helped people you work with to really shift that mindset? Like, have you had people come in and have that negativity but then switch it around somehow? And if so,
I think the most rewarding thing is seeing that transition with people, and I have seen it. And I'm not saying that I am the reason for that change, but if I've sparked it in any way, then I'm grateful for that. But I think we do a lot of the learning from ourselves and on our own, with influences around us. So things that I can recommend: read more than looking at images on Instagram, and read different things. Learn as much as you possibly can. Take time, and I'll call it meditation, but take time to clear your mind. The clearer your mind, the more you can actually tune into your body and to your soul, and work out what actually feels right for you. Do you honestly think within yourself that looking like these people is going to make you happy on an inner and permanent, I guess if I can call it, or long-term way? Try and tune into yourself as much as you possibly can, and be honest with yourself. A lot of the time we are in denial and we lie to ourselves and we say that these things are going to make us happy when deep down we know that they're actually not. It might just bring temporary joy, but it's not what we need.
I imagine a lot of people would say, hell yeah, that would. Like, the first thing is, yeah, of course. What do you think?
But, you know, that's the conditioning of society. We've been taught that, you know, we need to fit this mold in order to be happy. That's not happy. Happiness is not external. Happiness is not fitting into the mold of someone else's standard. That is not happiness. Happiness is something that's attained within, and it's individual. It's different between every single person. You know, looking a particular way physically will bring temporary happiness, but that's not the be all and end all of happiness. You know, that's not long term. That's temporary, because when your happiness depends on something that is external, which is temporary in nature, then your happiness will too be temporary. You know, if you can learn to tune into yourself and be real and honest and genuine with yourself, that is happiness, you know, because when you're tuning into your intuition, that's probably the most everlasting thing that we possibly have. It's your soul, it's intuition. When you tune into that, your joy will align with that. Your sense of happiness will align with that. So stop feeding into the bullshit that media is telling you. We are so much smarter. We are born with this mental capacity to think for ourselves. We are born with a brain. We are born with a heart and a soul. Use it to determine what it is that you actually want, or see things for what they actually are. The physical is just the physical. There is so much more to that. More than that, sorry.
Totally. And so reading, tuning into the you know, the mindfulness, the meditation, those are the top two that you'd recommend.
Tune into yourself, try and clear your mind, try to stop feeding so much into the bullshit that we're taught to believe, and be honest with who you are and with what you actually want and with what you actually need.
Yeah,
exactly.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So self-honesty, stop deceiving yourself, stop buying into things that are from outside, and just allowing the outside to think for you, essentially.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed, I've had a lot of women post-pregnancy, so after giving birth to a child, coming and trying to lose, you know, the body weight. And one thing that the additional fat, one thing that I've noticed is this common thread that women walk in and say, oh, you know, I hate the way that I look. I don't fit into the clothes that I once fit in, you know, before I had my kid. And I saw this chick on Instagram or whatever, you know, and she just had a kid and she's already got a six pack. And I'm like, whoa, you know, hold on. You've got to pay attention to what your body has just done for the last 9 months. You have created life into this world, and you're worrying about 2 kilos of skin or of fat. Like, you know, to go through that whole process and then hate on yourself because of the way that you look, that is so unhealthy. That is more unhealthy than going to McDonald's and eating a family pack by yourself. Like, that is so unhealthy, you know. So that's what I mean. We've got to stop buying into this. And all of that is just consumerism. All of that is just, oh, you know, buy these gym clothes, buy this, you know, this protein and be this particular way and plastic surgery and la, la, la. All of that is just there to condition us and to make us unhappy, because they profit from these companies that have all of these things, profit from our own insecurity and our own unhappiness. And for those women that have just given birth to a child, that time after should be spent thanking your body for what it's just done, not hating on your body for the way that it may look different to what it was prior to having a kid. You know, work out to feel strong, to regain the core strength that you might have lost slightly during pregnancy or the time after. You know, the weight will fall off, but that time should be spent thanking and loving yourself for what you've just done, you know.
100%. And do you find a difference? I imagine, you know, because I've been personal training for a while now as well, and even working, teaching Qigong and teaching these classes and working with people on an ongoing basis, that what do you find in your, I'm curious to know what it's like for you, the difference in mindset between people who come and they last 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, or they come sporadically, they'll come for a couple of months, disappear, come back, you know, and between those people and the people who come and then stick with it, and they've, you know, 2 years down the track, 3 years down the track, they're still there. What do you find are the main differences between these two types of people?
Okay, taking out of the equation that it's not a reflection of them not liking me for the reason that let's put that one aside. So given that it's just, given just, difference in terms of how long they're training for. So I think that comes down to mentality, and it's hard to say because obviously everyone is very different. But I feel as though I've been blessed in the regard that the majority of the people that I've trained have become almost like family and that I've known for a really long period of time. But there have been people that have sort of come and gone and trained sporadically like that for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and then given up on it, and then gone on this, binge eating holiday or whatever it may be. And I think it comes down to factors like, I don't want to say lack of discipline, because lack of discipline always stems from something beyond that. If we're not willing to discipline ourselves, it could be in relation to maybe not believing in ourselves. So if we don't believe in ourselves, we're not willing to put in that hard work and that discipline. It could be lack of self-love. So, giving up on that hard work because you don't love yourself enough to do it, I don't know, maybe comfort zones as well. So maybe it's more comfortable for some people to not train and not put in the hard work and to eat.
Is there specific attitudes or something that you find from the people who do come in, like someone who asks you a question and they listen, they're really attentive to listening or applying? There's some people who come in and train, but they're distracted or they're not quite there, or like, are there specific things you notice between the people who stick with it and the people who are sporadic?
The funny thing is, some of the, and I say this in the most loving way possible, but some of the people that complain the most have been the ones that I've had for the longest period of time. So they sit there and from the warm up to the stretch, they're swearing with every single word in every different language under the sun. But some of those people have been the ones that have been the most consistent with it.
So does that signify a care, like a level of care? They actually really care about it because it's really annoying and frustrating them. There's a level of importance to them.
It could possibly. I think it's also a good release of tension. So maybe I am like a punching bag.
And it's a bit of honesty as well. It's a bit of self, you said let go of the dishonesty and the self-deception. It's really, they're being honest with how they're feeling and expressing it.
Yeah. And I mean, if you don't get, you got to laugh at that to an extent, you know what I mean? Because I've got this one group that I train, and no joke, and they're Greek as well. So, Greek swear words that I've never even.
Malaka, this and that. And
the list goes on. And it's entertaining. Honest to God, you got to laugh. You've got to not be so, I disconnect to it on an emotional level. Like, I don't get affected by it. You just got to laugh. And at the end of the day, that's their hour. When someone pays you for an hour to train, that is money that they're investing in themselves. If you need to sit and swear and scream and complain, go for it. I'm here for that. If that hour is for you to release any tension you have bottled in, go for gold.
Awesome. And what are some practices that you do to kind of get into flow? This is something that I often ask a lot of my guests is, I'm big on flow and peak states and being in the zone, being in the flow zone. What are some things that you specifically do or ways that you like to think or be that you that help you get into that zone, into the state where you said it's easy to keep calm and you come back into that sort of centered space? What is it? Could be diet, whatever it is for you. What are some of the practices that you do?
I think it's a constant learning process, but I try and tune into my body as much as possible, and I ask myself what I really need. So there's two things. I follow a routine of training that works for me, that I found has worked for me, and that's constantly subjective to change as well. But so I try and find
you got there by trying different things until
Yeah. And I mean, our bodies constantly change. We constantly change as people. So that routine that I have now might not still work within a couple of months' time. But I try and find a routine of training and of eating that fits me. Alongside that,
And what does that look like, just quickly? Like, is it, you said it's 2 hours, it's an hour and a half. Is it you eat, you stick to a specific, is it a ketogenic diet, a paleo, or vegetarian? Like, what does it kind of look like?
So in terms of the training side of it, I try and get in at least an hour and a half a day. That could involve anything from, a lot of cardio, so the running, a bit of weight work, kickboxing. I try and fit in at least 4 times a week, whether that's at the gym or doing just some bag work. So that's a training side of things. 6 or 7 days a week, depending on how my body feels. Sometimes I'm absolutely thrashed and I need a day off, so I do that. The diet side, I did vegan for about 9 months or so, and for the first 6 months my body was in a complete detox, so I felt amazing. And then after that, I found that no matter how many greens I ate, my iron was still quite low. So I slowly introduced a little bit of meat once a week. So now the way that it is, there's no dairy, just because I found dairy has never worked for me. It's, I would say, about 70% plant-based, so vegetables and fruits.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of meat, a little bit of fish, some nuts and some grains. At the moment, I'm trying to cut a little bit of weight. So there's no carbs, which is a little bit sad.
You sound distraught about that.
Oh, yeah, I like carbs. No potato. I really like potatoes, so there's no potato.
That's my biggest thing in the world. Oh, every meal. It's amazing. It's the best. Like, I don't know if you guys out there know, but it's the best.
Can do with it. It is like the potato can
versatile. It's so versatile. You got fries, you got bake, you got mash, you got hash brown. What else you got?
Amen. I love the potato.
You got curry, you got everything.
That's it.
Oh,
so no carbs at the moment, which is a little bit depressing. What do you do?
All right, we'll stop talking about it. I'll stop rubbing it in.
A lot of potato talk. So the carbs I've cut out now for about 2 weeks. I wouldn't do this long term because your body obviously looks at, there are elements of carbs within most food groups that you do eat. So I eat broccoli. It's not specifically a carb, but there's still, obviously carbs in it. But in terms of starchy carbs, I've cut that out. I don't agree with doing that long term, but just for now and knowing how my body works, I'll do it for the next couple of months or so. 1 or 2 months, and it should be fine. But at the moment, that's where my diet is sort of at. So,
and what's your liquid intake? What do you drink? A lot of
water.
fluid?
I drink nothing against it. So, but I don't drink alcohol. Soft drinks, definitely not a fan of. A lot of water, a lot of fresh juice. Green juices are fantastic.
So you got to blend it.
Oh yeah, you got to blend it. Or if you don't have time, there's cold pressed juices, and so water, juice. That's about it.
Yeah, I'm big on the water as well, and the green juices.
Awesome. Apple cider and a bit of water and lemon is actually pretty good as well. So first thing in the morning on an empty stomach,
just to give a bit of flavour, a bit of alkalinity. And awesome. So thanks so much for your time. I think we're gonna wrap it up a little bit, but before we go, I just super appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, and I hope we could do it again sometime. The final question is just what do you want to leave the Flow fam with? What's the one thing you want to leave? Could be a question, could be an idea, a concept that's coming through, whatever it is. The most important thing for you that you feel that you'd love to transmit. What's the last little thing you want to leave the Flow fam?
Okay. What's coming to me now is something that I've learned, and I try and practice as much as possible. And it's recognize your strength and be aware of how strong you actually are. Throughout the course of our lives, we've been thrown so many bricks along our path to tell us that we're not good enough and we're not strong enough. But take that all the way, and at the core of who you are strong beyond any limitation. And you are capable beyond any limitation. So when you do anything in life, lead with love and lead with strength, and you'll be in the right direction.
Strength.
Is that
Amazing. Coming from the heart. Amazing.
There you go.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Rest of your weekend, and hopefully again, we'll do it again sometime.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Until then, you guys know what to do is rock on.